Thursday, November 14th, advanced class. We're going to finish going over Brovicast and apparently having to yell at people who have lots of issues.
Andrew took my hat.
I know. I just charged you all points. Made things much easier for me.
Did I get what me?
What a fun way for this all to start.
Did I get?
Make Andrew give me my special hat back.
I was walking it.
Yeah, it was the 3 knuckleheads. Hey, welcome back, class time. Let's see, there's a vocab test coming up on Monday, Remind 101, blah, blah, blah. Homework comes due to the next Tuesday. Make sure that you've read the story Priscilla and the Wimps. Hello, Alex, if you're at home and dead right now. If you're in 6th period, I don't know if you're dead yet. Black hat. All right, we're going to do one more time, because the more times we beat this into, the better. We haven't had a chance to have any of you guys do it yet today?
No.
We'll definitely try to
Well,
make
it's
that happen.
all the times we tried to, like, the bell's gone off, so you just said.
I'm gonna, fingers crossed. We'll see what happens later. We go through fast enough. All right. So real quick, we'll run through the games, repetitions. You guys ready? With
characters, who is in the story, setting, when and where, plot, what happens, point of view, how we see the story, theme, what we learn, internal conflict, external conflict, something versus something.
mumble versus mumble. All right. You guys did. With our story, The Black Cat, as we get into it so far, we have point of view. So we figure that out at the very beginning. What's our point of view so far into the story? AK?
First person.
How do you know it's first person?
Because it says like I.
Nice. So then you have the main character talking directly to us, and he tells us a number of things. At the very beginning of the story, what is going to happen to him tomorrow?
He's gonna die.
He's going to die. He says, I'm going to go through and tell you about why I'm going to die and what's going to cause it to happen. And he says, well, first I have to give you some background on myself. And he tells us 2 important things about himself, which now makes more sense as we get farther into the story. But Omni, what does he tell us about himself?
He likes animals.
He likes animals, was one part of the fact that he grew up an animal lover. The other big thing he tells us about himself, about why he got made fun of when he was a kid. Tang?
Because he was really nice and
Works for me. Humane, meaning he loves other people. And so he got made fun of when he was a kid because he was really nice and humane and liked other people and things like that. Which ends up becoming a bit of a switch because what do we find out he started doing?
Murdering. Kills.
Gabby?
He kills animals, which is being
Not
mean.
animals.
Oh, well, his cat.
That's one.
Well, yeah.
So he killed an animal, but not. And why does he kill the animal?
Abused the other animals.
That's different than killing.
Well, but it's still mean.
I didn't say it wasn't mean. I said it was different.
Well, he
Okay. He's an alcoholic, which led to the poor choices. He does kill a cat, which is different, not animals. And he is abusive. That's different than killing. Calvert?
He killed the cat because he thought it was like it would be fun.
Not so much that. Well, I guess you're on the right. The fact that not just like woo, but you're on the right track to it. Bender?
He hits his wife.
And he does abuse his wife. He doesn't limit it to just animals. He definitely has issues. Grant?
He like uses all his animals and he took out the eye of his cat.
He does take out the eyeball first, begin the abuse. Patty?
He kills his cat because he knows it's wrong.
And he does it because he knows it's wrong. More so than the fun, it was the fact that he does it because it's wrong. And that's where he says, you know, even though I know it's wrong, people, it's part of human nature to do things that you know are wrong. He knows this is wrong, does it anyway. Then, is that where we got to? Because we're all the way over onto the right-hand side. I did that. Oh! The same night, I forgot that he kills the cat, the single animal. Something happens to his house. And what happens to his house socks?
Catches on fire.
Catches on fire. We don't know why. It says the bed curtains go up in flames, catches on fire, and that's where he freaks out. Luckily, he makes it out alive, but they didn't have insurance, because before they had insurance, your house burns down, you're out of luck. But he comes back, and part of the house is left standing. One part is still there. And what's the only part of the house left standing, Keegan?
The closet door, and he assumes that someone saw their house on fire, so they cut the cat off the tree and threw it through his window to wake him up.
And so it was a closet wall, and the wall was right behind where his bed was. And so it's just like it was the wall right behind my bed. He says that was the only one left standing. And what is on the wall? And that's what freaks people out. Like, oh, it's so strange and so tame.
It's an imprint of the dead cat being hung.
The imprint of a cat. Basically, plaster is the stuff that you have on walls that makes it, so it's not like a bare wood. It looks like someone took a cat and just smashed it against it and then pulled it out. And you have like this imprint of a cat with a little noose around it. And that's his explanation is obviously someone cut it down and flung it in there to wake me up because, well, honestly, that'd wake me up. And so it's probably not a bad idea. And that's his explanation of all this. Then that takes us all the way over to the right-hand side, and now we're going to get into the fun part. Because it wasn't fun prior to this. That fourth column, that first big paragraph. Although I had found a logical explanation for what I had seen, it did not fail to make a deep impression upon my imagination. For months, I could not rid myself of the specter of the cat, and during this period, there came back into my soul a half-feeling that seemed close to it, but was not quite remorse. I went so far as to regret the loss of the animal, and to look about me, among the dreadful places which I now frequently visited, for another pet of the same species, and of somewhat similar appearance with which to replace it. So what is he trying to do?
Get another cat.
Get a new cat. He feels bad, misses the cat, he's going to go out and get himself a new cat, because that's what you do when you kill the other one. One night, as I sat, half stupefied, he's drunk, in a local bar, my attention was suddenly drawn to some black object resting upon the head of one of the immense barrels of gin, or rum, which was the main furniture of the place. I had been looking steadily at the top of this barrel for some time, and what now surprised me was the fact that I had no sooner noticed the object there. I approached it, touched it with my hand. It was a black cat, a very large one, nearly as large as Pluto, and closely resembling him in every aspect except one. Pluto had not a white hair upon any part of his body, but this cat had a large splotch of white covering nearly the whole region of his chest. Upon my touching him, he immediately arose, purred loudly, rubbed against my hand, and appeared delighted with my attention. This, then, was the very creature of which I was in search. I once offered to purchase it of the bartender, but he made no claim to it, knew nothing of it, had never even seen it before. I continued to pet it, and when I prepared to go home, the animal seemed to want to follow me. I allowed it to do so, occasionally stooping and patting it as I went. When it reached the house, it made itself quite comfortable at once, and immediately became a great favorite with my wife. So what does he find?
A cat.
A new cat. But what's different with this cat?
It has a white spot on
Yeah. So on the little chest area, it has a white splotch of white fur that's just sitting there. And it's very friendly, almost as big as Pluto. And like Pluto, follows him around, which cats don't normally do. Just meow, 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 and follow you around. This one does. Gabby?
Is it real?
I think so. I mean,
Because
like,
like the guy said that he's never seen it.
I thought
The guy doesn't know.
as in the bartender, not as in you can't see it, he'd never
Yeah,
seen it
yeah.
before. Well, he was like, I've never seen a cat before. He's like, can I have it? He's like, I don't care. That's why.
That's what I was
That's what he's trying to say. Grant?
There's a cat in my house.
Uh-huh. Hold that thought. Omni?
He said he was like really drunk.
Yes, he was really drunk. So you think he might be like a raccoon the next day?
Yeah.
But it says his wife likes him. He might go, "What? That's a raccoon!" I mean, he wakes up and his wife says she likes it too, so I'm guessing it probably is a cat. But he was really drunk at the time. For my own part, I soon found a dislike to it arising within me. Freddie, that was fast. This was just the opposite of what I had anticipated, but I know not how or why it was, I became disgusted by his evident fondness of me. By slow degrees, these feelings of disgust and annoyance rose into the bitterness of hatred. I avoided the creature, a certain sense of shame, of the remembrance of my former deed of cruelty, preventing me from physically abusing it. I did not, for some weeks, strike or otherwise violently abuse it, but gradually, very gradually, I came to look upon it with unimaginable loathing, and to flee silently from its revolting presence, as far from the breath of a plague. Tang?
Why is this woman still with him?
Exactly.
Does she know that he hung the cat?
I'm assuming he left it hanging out there all day, so unless she thinks the cat did it to himself, it was like some kind of weird kitty suicide, yes. Because she's loved him for a long time, and that's sort of how abuse works, unfortunately, is you stay with the person. I don't know. People do that.
She's stupid.
Yes.
This was before they had the.
But don't worry, she gets away from him soon enough. Have faith. Oh, so what?
kills it.
So backing up, we have the fact
Oh
that
my
he's
gosh.
found a new. She just likes to kill people. Really ignore Chloe. And so he found out the fact that he has the cat, and what's happened with how does he feel towards the cat?
He hates
Why does he hate it?
Because it loves him.
Because it loves him, which makes him feel mad. He's like, why do you love me? And so because of that, he wants to hurt it. Perfectly healthy, happens all the never. What added, no doubt, to my hatred of the beast was the discovery on the morning after I brought it home that, like Pluto, it also had lost one of its eyes. This circumstance, however, only endeared it to my wife, who possessed that feeling towards animals which had once been my distinguishing trait, and the source of many of my simplest and purest pleasures. With my hatred for this cat, however, its attraction towards me seemed to increase. It followed my footsteps with an insistence that would be difficult to make the reader comprehend. Whenever I sat, it would crouch beneath my chair, or spring upon my knees, covering me with its loathsome purring. If I arose to walk, it would get between my feet and thus nearly trip me up, or fastening its long and sharp claws in my clothes, climb in this manner to my chest. At such times, although I wanted to destroy it with a single blow, I was still stopped from doing so, partly by a memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess it at once, by my absolute fright of the beast. This dread was not exactly a dread of physical evil, and yet I should be at loss at how otherwise to define it. I am almost ashamed to own, yes, even in my current felon's cell, I am still ashamed to own that the terror and horror with which the animal inspired me have been heightened to a level it would be almost impossible to think of. My wife had called my attention, more than once, to the shape of the mark of white hair, which was the only visible difference between the strange beast and the one I had destroyed. The reader will remember that this mark, although large, had been originally quite indefinite, meaning it had no shape to it, it was just like a blob. But by slow degrees nearly unnoticeable, in which for a long time my brain struggled to reject as simply imagination, its outline had taken on a more definite shape. It was now the depiction of an object that I shudder to name, and for this, above all, I loathed and dreaded, and would have rid myself of the monster had I dared. It was now, I say, the image of a hideous, of a ghastly thing, of the gallows. O mournful and terrible engine of horror and crime, of agony and of death. You guys know what gallows are?
No.
Bevan?
It's like, okay, you put someone on the gallows, and then they're usually standing on something, you move that thing, they fall, and they get hung.
So that's what you hang people. I mean, if I ever played hangman, you draw the thing up, over, and you put the hang. That's the gallows. And so this white splotch that was on the cat's chest, over time, went from a splotch to a gallows on the cat's chest.
Well, that tastes nice.
So that's why he's like, oh, kind of freaked out. But don't worry, it gets better. And now was I indeed miserable beyond mere humanity would allow. Alas, neither by day nor by night knew I the blessing of sleep anymore. During the former, the creature left me no moment alone, and in the latter, I started hourly from dreams of unutterable fear to find the hot breath of the thing upon my face, and its vast weight a living nightmare that I had no power to shake off, resting eternally upon my heart. So the cat, every night, sleeps where?
On his chest.
Right on top of his heart, his chest, breathing right into his
That's what
face.
my dad does.
Beneath the pressure of torments such as these, the frail remains of the good that was within me gave way. Evil thoughts became my only comforts. The darkest and most evil of thoughts, the moodiness of my usual attitude, increased into hatred of all living things and of all mankind. And my uncomplaining wife was the most usual and the most patient of sufferers of these outbursts. See, she's nice. She loves them. One day, she accompanied me upon some household errand into the basement of the old building which our poverty forced us to live in. The cat followed me down the steep stairs, and, nearly tripping me, infuriated me into madness, lifting a nearby axe, and, forgetting in my wrath the childish dread which had so far stopped me, I aimed a blow at the animal, which, of course, would have proved instantly fatal had it gone as I wished. But this blow was stopped by the hand of my wife. Aggravated by the interference into a blinding rage, I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot without even a groan. Whoops. This hideous murder accomplished, he was angry at the cat, wants to kill the cat. What does she do?
She tries to
Yeah,
stop it.
she's like, no! He's like, rah, rah. And then he's like, that's bad. This hideous murder accomplished, I set about the task of concealing the body. I knew that I could not remove it from the house, either by day or by night, without the risk of being seen by the neighbors. Many ideas entered my mind. At one period, I thought of cutting the corpse into tiny pieces and destroying them by fire. At another, I resolved to dig a grave for it in the floor of the basement. Again, I thought about tossing it in the well in the backyard. I even considered packing it in a box as if it were a present and getting the postman to take it away from the house. Allow me to repeat that last part of his plan on how to get rid of the body. I was going to pack it into boxes and give it to the postman.
That's so stupid because they'll have his
I know! But that was what he was thinking. Finally, I hit upon what I considered a far better method than either of those. I determined to wall it up in the cellar, as the monks of the Middle Ages are thought to have walled up their victims. For a purpose such as this, the basement was well tailored. Its walls were loosely constructed and had lately been plastered throughout with a rough plaster, which the constant dampness of the basement had prevented from hardening. Moreover, in one of the walls was a hollow area, caused by a false chimney or fireplace that had been filled up and made to resemble the rest of the basement. I made no doubt that I could readily remove the bricks in this part, insert her corpse, and wall up the hole as before, so that no eye could detect anything suspicious. And in this calculation, I was not wrong. With a crowbar, I easily dislodged the bricks, and, having carefully placed the body against the inner wall, I propped it in that position, while, with little trouble, I relaid the bricks and wall as it had originally stood. Having bought mortar, sand, and hair, I prepared a new plaster, which could, that's how they used to do bricking with hair to keep everything together. It makes like a binding thing. It sounds weird, but it worked. Which could not be distinguished from the old. And with this, I very carefully went over my fresh brickwork. When I had finished, I felt sure that it was perfect. The wall did not have the slightest appearance of having been broken. The rubbish on the floor was picked up with care. I looked around triumphantly and said to myself, here, at least then, my work has not been in vain. My next step was to look for the beast which had been the cause of so much misery, for I had at length firmly resolved to put it to death. Had I been able to meet with it at the moment, there could have been no doubt of its fate. But it appeared the crafty animal had been alarmed at the violence of my previous anger, and had decided to hide because of my present mood. It is impossible to describe the deep and blissful sense of relief which the absence of the detested creature created in me. It did not come again that night, and thus for one night at least since its introduction into the house, I soundly and calmly slept. Yes, I slept, even with the burden of murder upon my soul. The second and third day passed, and still my tormentor came not. Once again I breathed as a free man. The monster, in terror, had fled the house forever. I should behold it no more. My happiness was supreme. The guilt of my dark deed disturbed me very little. Some investigation into my wife's disappearance had been made, but these had been readily answered. Even a search for her had occurred, but of course nothing was to be discovered. I looked upon my future freedom as entirely secured. Upon the fourth day of the assassination, the police came, very unexpectedly, into the house, and again made a thorough investigation of the house. I felt safe, however, in knowing they would never discover my place of concealment. The officers asked me to accompany them in their search. They left no nook or corner unexplored. At length, for the third or fourth time, they descended into the basement. I didn't quiver a muscle. My heart beat as calmly as that of one who sleeps in innocence. I walked the basement from end to end. I folded my arms upon my chest and roamed easily to and fro. The police were thoroughly satisfied and prepared to leave. The excitement in my heart was too strong to be restrained. I burned to say but one word, so I could secretly gloat and yet also convince them of my guiltlessness. "Gentlemen," I said at last, as the cops climbed the steps, "I'm happy to have dispelled your suspicions. I wish you all good health. By the by, gentlemen, this is a very well-constructed house. in the rabid desire to say something easily, I scarcely knew what I uttered at all. I may say an excellently constructed house. These walls, are you going already, gentlemen? These walls are solidly put together. And here, through the mere act of daring, I knocked heavily with a cane, which I held in my hand, upon that very portion of the brickwork behind which stood the corpse of my wife. He says, these walls, he bangs on the wall, but may God shield and deliver me from the fangs of the evil beast. No sooner had the echoes of my blows sunk into silence than I was answered by a voice from within the tomb, by a cry, at first muffled and broken, like the sobbing of a child, and then quickly swelling into one long, loud, and continuous scream, utterly abnormal and inhuman, a howl, a wailing shriek, half of horror and half of triumph, such as might have arisen only out of a nightmare, conjointly from the throats of the cursed and their agony of the demons that exult in their external torture. As to my own thoughts, it is silly to speak of them. Swooning, I staggered to the opposite wall. For one instant, the policemen upon the stairs remained motionless, frozen by their terror and awe. In the next, a dozen strong arms were tearing at the wall. It fell quickly. The corpse, already greatly decayed and clotted with gore, stood erect before the eyes of the crowd. Upon the corpse's head, with its gaping red mouth and solitary eye of fire, sat the hideous beast whose acts had seduced me into murder, and whose powerful voice will send me to the hangman. I had walled the monster up within the tomb.
I knew it. It's too much like that cemetery.
And there it stops. So, why is he going to die tomorrow?
Because he getting hung because he murdered his wife.
Nicely done, because he murdered his wife. So you find out that that's why he got. And of course, you find out that with the murdering of the wife, who is it that rats him out?
The cat.
The cat. And so then it comes back and he says, it's all perfectly normal. There's nothing superstitious or supernatural. He's like, it's just a thing of events, but when you put them all together, it comes across as pretty supernatural. And that's at the very beginning. He says it's all of these weird things. I mean, it's just a guy who is an alcoholic, kills his wife, and accidentally buries a cat. So when you put it all together, you're like, maybe there was more to it.
And you never explained what happened to the cat in the walls.
What do you mean, what happened to the cat in the wall?
Like, did the cat start the fire or something? Or
Sometimes fires just happen.
it was just a coincidence that he killed a cat and then his house started on fire.
Just a
Such a
coincidence.
coincidence that he killed a cat and then his house just...
Now remember, at
And
the
the
very
cat was on the
beginning,
wall.
what does his wife joke about the black cat being?
Oh, wait.
He says, but it's just kidding. Like, that doesn't actually happen.
I
That'd be
called it.
silly. But then, maybe it's true.
I don't know.
Why?
Neither. Because there's a lot of death. There's like
I told you it ends happily. He's in jail, right?
And he died.
And you wanted him to die? You wanted the bad guy to get put...
to suffer.
He's suffering. He's in
No,
jail.
he's not. This is
He's getting hung. That would be so painful.
Yes.
See? It's painful.
No, but it's like an no, he needs to suffer for a long time.
He's in jail.
But if he gets hung, then nothing.
No, I would never.
You want to kill him by stabbing him with a needle once a day?
Yes.
No. Once he dies, he'll go to hell.
That wasn't me. That's Rose who was saying. Unfortunately, once again, we've run out of time to give you guys a chance to do the thing. But it's been popping up that apparently somebody's been talking to sixth period and telling them what happens when we go over stories. If you
I told
do
him the wrong stuff.
realize if I find out, then I don't let you sit in class. I make you sit in the hallway when we go over things. I don't let you find out until you go back and watch on YouTube. If you don't believe me, you can talk to my 8th graders last year, because I had a kid in first period make that 4-choice and game. Because we're not even getting to the fun story, that's next week. So this is just the stuff to get you ready for it, because if you talk about next week's story,
There's another one about death.
it's called, you have to wait till next week.
I don't care
Talk
what
about
person,
that one.
I just don't want an animal.
No animal dies in that story.